We are calling to order at 7:07. Charlie, could you please read the district mission statement?
Let me just pull it up.
Sure thing.
Ipswich Public Schools aspires to empower all students to be global citizens who are effective communicators, analytical problem solvers, and savvy consumers of information. We propose to do this through an emphasis on communication, self-management, perseverance, and collaboration. Students will be active partners in authentic learning, offering voices and choice, and demonstrating competency.
Thank you. All right, for announcements, we have the next school committee meeting is scheduled for Thursday, September 5th at 7 in this ensemble room. The elementary school building project working group is meeting at 5:30 in the middle school, high school guidance conference room on Wednesday, August 28th. Opening day for all staff is Monday, August 26th. School begins for all students in grades 1 through 12 on Wednesday, August 28th. Kindergarten begins on Tuesday, September 3rd, and there is no school on Friday, August 30th. And then I know we'll talk later on about other subcommittees that are in the works for planning. And any special acknowledgements?
Nothing this evening.
Well, I'd just like to welcome Diana Freehan and Jen Donahue as the chair and co-chair of the school committee.
Thank you. It'll be a good year. You got a great team. All right. Next, we have public comments. As it's the first meeting, I'm not sure if we're going to have any, but I'm going to read this as we will plan to read at every meeting, our policy. So public comment is not a discussion, debate, or dialogue between individuals and the school committee. It is an individual's opportunity to express an opinion on issues within the school committee's authority. While the committee and/or administrators will not typically respond during public comment, the chair, as presiding officer of the meeting, may choose to if she deems it expeditious. Further, should the chair believe that an issue falls outside the purview of the school committee, she may request that citizens direct it to the appropriate person or body so that the matter is given proper consideration. Public comment is limited to 3 minutes per person and a total of 15 minutes overall. And any speakers are just asked to say your name and street.
Name and what? So can everybody hear me?
It's for the people watching at home.
So my name is Sarah Coyle. I've recently moved to Ipswich on June 1st and became interested in something that's near and dear to my heart, which is how do communities respond to climate. And I know that the committee tonight is going to be looking at some of the discussions around the NORESCO proposal. And I just want to encourage people to think positively about it because it's a great opportunity to save money, save energy, take advantage of great incentives that don't come along every day, and will basically help reduce operating costs for the schools. So I'm hoping that you'll think well about it. There are a lot of people who are really interested in NORESCO, even though it's super technical and kind of gets in the weeds. But generally speaking, the idea of saving money by putting in much more efficient equipment that's going to replace stuff that's about to die is pretty attractive. So thank you for listening. And I also want to thank everybody for the amount of time and effort that you put in on this, on all the issues facing you. I know you've got a lot on your plates, so I appreciate you taking this time. Thanks.
Thank you. All right. Anybody else? Okay. Next, the high school student representative report.
School is on its way. With the start of high school on Wednesday, many students, including myself, are finishing the last days of summer to finish our summer reading and our homework for AP classes. Still have a few chapters to read. High school sports have started with the girls' field hockey team having a scrimmage game yesterday or Wednesday, I believe. And there'll be more games this weekend and this coming week. Summer practices have started with the football team starting practices, I've been told. I don't have many issues that I've heard about from the students because I haven't seen many of them. But one question I have been asked about is the Yellowstone field trip. I know that the students are obviously interested in going, and it's a few months away, and so people are thinking about planning, and I know the school committee had either didn't pass originally or did pass later on the paying grant funds for that trip. I don't know if it was fully passed or if it was like rejected and then passed, but is there finally, was it passed, was it not passed, is the only question.
Payne Grant rejected it, I think.
Rejected it, and then,
We approved the trip. Payne Grant Committee rejected the
okay.
trip. So
But did the school committee override the paying grant to do that? No?
We don't do that.
Okay, gotcha. Cool.
Do you
That's it.
have any information? Okay,
Okay.
so no updates yet. Anything else, Charlie?
No, that's
Okay.
it.
Welcome to your senior year.
Thank you.
Okay, on to presentations. So the first item is an update on Town Hall Pumping Station, and we welcome Rachel Belisle-Toller. Did I get it right? Okay. Sorry about that. And she is the Ipswich Water Resources Manager.
Perfect. Should I speak into this?
yes, please.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Where did the summer go? What happened? This is crazy. I feel like it's December. I'm Rachel Belisle-Toller. I work for the Utilities Department here in town, so just your neighbor down the road. Always a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for letting me come take some time and talk to you a little bit about our Town Wharf pump station, hopefully soon to be our Town Hall pump station, depending on what happens, and update you as an important stakeholder in this process. Because we have a few numbers, I'll give a very, very quick overview of the project, just in case you don't know about it. Our main pump station for our wastewater infrastructure for town is located at the Town Wharf, and it is highly, highly vulnerable to coastal flooding. So it's pretty much at capacity. It's about over 60 years old. It needs to be replaced, and in the process of the replacement, we've decided that it's absolutely necessary that we remove the pump station from the Town Wharf because in case of failure, if it were to be inundated, we would have a situation where the town sewage would back up into our homes and also into the Ipswich River, and we want to avoid that as at all possible. So we've been working on this for a very long time over at our wastewater department. We've been aggressively applying for grants because, as you might imagine, it's an incredibly expensive project. It's going to be $22.2 million. Last year, we got a town match for the grant that we've been pursuing for $7.2 million. We've been pursuing funding from FEMA for $15 million. And as part of this project, we want to relocate this station somewhere that you might recognize, which is at the town hall property, which is controlled by the school committee. So that's why I'm here tonight to give you an update on this project, not to ask for a formal vote to do this because it's not official yet, but to let you know that we are proceeding with this project and certainly hoping to place the new pump station there. Just a reminder, the reason that this spot was chosen was because it's already along where we have our infrastructure already. Our wastewater infrastructure goes sort of under the Sugarcliff River Walk. And the spot where we, in the northwest corner up here, would like to place the new pump station is high enough to be safe from coastal flooding and storm surge. And again, very conveniently located along where our infrastructure already exists, our easements already exist for that area. So last you saw me was in January. We were asking for your permission to conduct some geotechnical studies of this area to see if it was appropriate for a pump station. We did some borings at that location and found that it was suitable. And now we have sort of the specific rendering right here, which is our ideal location right in that corner. It should not be obtrusive to any of the fields if it does end up going there, if things go as planned. And it should be, we would need sort of an above ground building and some equipment, but we're trying to make it as beautiful as we possibly can. So before the next town meeting, we're hoping to come back and ask for your vote and support to release this land so that we can move forward with this project. We're also talking to Ascension so that we can You can kind of see, put in this road and go through so that our trucks can get to that location. So where we are with the project, like I said, we've been working on this for many years. We're almost on a 30% design. We've done a ton of outreach for this project. You may be aware that we actually worked very closely with Ipswich High School this last year to learn about this wastewater infrastructure and learn about these efforts from the town. As I said, we did the geotechnical survey, and the next step would be to do what we're calling a phase 1 intensive archaeological survey that has been determined by our potential funders, FEMA, to be necessary at this site. So this kind of came as a surprise for us. We're looking at it as a very positive sign that they're considering this for this $15 million to move forward with this important project. So they're asking us to complete that. They'd like to do it next week. They've invited actually members of regional tribes, and because it's been identified for them as a area of cultural significance. And what this would look like is just a very small amount of excavation, these like 50 by 50 centimeter squares that they would do throughout the property. Very non-invasive, very minor, just to see if there is anything uncovered that warranted further investigation. And if there would be, then we would move on to phase 2 and so on. And we would be back here certainly to communicate with you all of that. Like I said, I had the privilege this year of working with Lori LaFrance's sustainability class. I just wanted to show this really quickly. We worked together all year to learn about the pump station. The students chose the pump station as their project this year and did this phenomenal job exploring what coastal flooding meant to our wastewater infrastructure. I was really worried when I was put in charge of outreach for this project that it would be hard to get people to feel excited about wastewater infrastructure, but the students totally grasped the severity of the issue, caught on quickly, educated me. We're out there during storms before I could get there to take pictures, and really, really put life into our concern and argument for why this is so necessary. So we're so grateful for the collaboration we had with that class. We certainly intend to continue to offer those opportunities and collaborations going forward. It's one of my favorite parts of my job. So I'm showing you now just a snippet of what they did. We did this fantastic brochure from the sustainability class. We collaborated together to do it. They took all the pictures. We actually had a student translate the brochure into Spanish. They made a website. So it was a really, really fabulous collaboration all year. I'm very, very grateful to Lori and to the students. Oops, sorry, switched ahead. So in order to, again, so in order to get that 15 million, we've done a lot of groundwork. Me and FEMA were actually here last December to do a site walkthrough. As I mentioned, they're requiring the phase 1 intensive archaeological survey. We have to have a hazard mitigation plan in place. Our current one is actually expired, so our department is taking the initiative to get that done again for the town. There will be public meetings about that as well that you'll be aware of. We're hoping to get, again, that partial funding, and we are waiting for that to sort of move forward. If we don't get the funding for the $15 million, then we will not be able to relocate the pump station, and we'll have to talk about a different design that actually reconstructs the current pump station and upgrades it, and have to go back to town meeting, kind of start over. So like I said, next steps is to advance the design if we do get that funding from 60 to 90%. We're hoping to then concurrently start the permitting process. We are hoping to also start those formal conversations with you all about releasing 25 Green Street so that we would be able to bring that to town meeting for a vote, and transfer the control of that land to the town so that we can put the pump station there. And then also work with Ascension, like I said, to finalize that easement. We actually already have an easement with them that covers the infrastructure underground, so it would be expanding that, and then bid starting in fall 25. And then after bidding would be construction. So it's a very, very long-term project, but that's where we're at. And again, the action items for you all would be to start thinking about what else you would like to see from us, what other information you'd like to help make that decision, how you want to be involved in this important process and project, and what we can do to communicate with you about the steps. We're certainly available to come back and talk about what we've learned at any stage of the process. Also tonight would be to get your permission to move forward with that archaeological survey, which would be next week. So, any questions right now for me?
Go ahead.
What is the size of, it's one unit that will be on the town hall land or school committee?
So I have, yeah, so you can kind of see the outline here of what the structures would look like. It's very, sorry, yeah, if I.
No, I didn't bring my glasses.
No, okay, I make that mistake 75% of the time.
Is there a number, like a number of feet?
There is, but we're so preliminary right now that I don't know it off the top of my head, and I wouldn't imagine it's going to stay the same. But if you picture the current pump station at the town,
Okay.
yeah, so it would be a similar structure to that, hopefully
Okay.
a bit more beautiful, hopefully a little bit smaller, and then some equipment outside of it as well. So, and again, this is our main pump station, so it sees all of the sewage in the entire town, and that's what we have at the town wharf right now. So, this design is very, very much updated from when that pump station was built 62 years ago. We're also hoping to do native plantings surrounding that site and also at the town wharf in its existing location potentially. So,
Oh, excellent. Okay, thanks.
yeah.
Thank you for coming and
course.
giving us an update. It's been a while. I guess I missed what the total project cost was.
22.2 million.
I missed it too. And then, so the easement through Ascension, that would be just access or like a paved road? Or
It would be, yeah, I believe it would be paved. And again, this is our sort of ideal setup generally. Of course, it could change depending on feedback, and also if we find anything with the archaeological survey, things might shift. But the idea is, yes, to put a road, an access road through there so that our trucks could get there in case of an emergency.
Is that what that brown is there? Okay.
And the black, so you can kind of see the black outlines, those are the structures.
And do you have the targeted town meeting that you're planning to?
Spring
date for
2025.
Spring 2025.
Yeah. Mhm.
And then, sorry, so many questions. It seems like we might have a choice between releasing a portion of the property to town and/or providing an easement.
Yeah.
So that's something we would need to figure out which would be better. Do you have any sense of what, it's a pretty small percentage of the land. Percentage or with what acreage we'd be looking to?
I don't have a idea of the percentage or the acreage because, first of all, just because this is one of the renderings of what it could look like, and it very much depends on what we find in the next steps. So one thing we might want to do is come back after the archaeological survey and maybe do another discussion with this group based on the results of that, and then we can have some more specific numbers about space because there are other opportunities for layout. This is by far the least obtrusive layout that we've presented here. So, so we can certainly have a discussion that's more specific about that.
And then the timing of the archaeological portion survey is soon,
Next week. If they would like to come next week, yes.
but you need our approval for that?
We are asking to have your blessing to move forward with it.
And sorry, those are holes throughout the property.
It would be very unobtrusive, 50 by 50 centimeter mini excavation sites, and also inviting our tribal representation to also come and walk around and see the site because it's a cultural significantly location for them. So.
And just in the areas the whole site, or just the areas that you're accessing? Just because we do have teams that use that pretty
Yeah.
regularly and practice and stuff, so I just want to make sure it's not
Right. You know what? We don't actually have a ton of information about what they are hoping to find or planning to do. I can certainly get that information. I know that they're planning on doing it in the mornings. So,
Yeah, it just might be worth, if that gets planned, to try to coordinate with youth,
sure.
football, baseball, I don't know, whoever practices there, and I don't know if we have
Football
access to
practice
that.
right now.
Just
but,
football?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know what times they practice, or I don't know. Just trying to, I mean, I'm sure there's enough time for both things to happen, but
Yeah.
trying to
And
coordinate
if they're
that.
doing that during the day when school's in session,
Yeah, that
there
should
wouldn't
be
be any practices on the field anyway.
Yeah.
I imagine that they'll be concentrating in the area that we've highlighted here. I just don't want to, I haven't spoken to the archaeologist, so I don't want to promise that.
And that would be what you're referring to, just for the testing, that's not going to be something permanent. This is just for the testing, so it would just be
Yeah.
a small amount of time? Like
Yeah. We're hoping to finish it next week. Yeah.
Oh, okay. The test results, you did some testing on the soil?
Yes, so it was called a geotechnical survey, and so they performed some borings just to see what the actual ground looked like and make sure that it was suitable to support the pump station and the project itself. So, we didn't want anything to fall over, once we built it there. So that was part of the purpose, to make sure it was structurally sound. And so that was, we deemed that it was an appropriate site because of that.
Is it possible to get those?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that would be good.
We can do that and also maybe a summary because I'm sure there's lots of documents. Be happy to summarize that.
Would it interfere with the Riverwalk at all, or would it be? I don't know. Kind of the trees block where it would be, but is it in the woods or is it actually on the field?
It would be on the edge of the field. This is a great question. Thank you for bringing that up. It would not interfere with the Riverwalk at all besides construction, at various points during construction. And right where those stairs are at the corner, if you can picture that, that's where, at the top of there, not obstructing the stairs, but near that area, is where we're planning on putting the station itself. And we're hoping to add to the Riverwalk. We've, if you're familiar with the Force Main Interceptor project we did several years ago, we were able to add these beautiful areas of native plants on the riverbank to biostabilize the infrastructure and the bank there. And so we're certainly hoping and doing some ecosystem restoration in that area on both locations, the prior location and hopefully the new location as well. So that's an area of my personal passion, and so that will definitely be incorporated.
That's great. I think one of Ipswich's great pieces is that walk, and you feel like you're on vacation. That's how I feel when I walk there.
Yes.
So that would still feel like that, like
Yes.
you wouldn't see it from the Riverwalk.
It's a very small building, so I'm not sure if you could see it, but it wouldn't be an obtrusive view, certainly. We're hoping to blend into the surroundings as much as possible. And we can come back and have a discussion about the visuals, once we continue down the road. Right now, we're just trying to make sure that there's not something archaeologically significant sitting there. But the renderings, we would want to come back and show you the actual renderings of the buildings and what it visually is going to look like once we get to that point.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Question. So 22 million total project, you're hoping for 15 million federal?
Yes.
Okay. If this is all a success and this is the location of a new pumping station, what happens to the former one now down at the wharf?
That's a great question as well. So we would demolish the current pump station. And so you think about that pump station on the wharf as this little brick box, but actually it's 20 feet of underground mechanical equipment that we'd have to remove. So part of the reason it's so expensive is because we have to remove that in such an important, ecologically important area. So we'd remove that, and we would build a very small pump station just to handle that neighborhood there that would be completely constructed and designed to be able to withstand coastal flooding, unlike the one that currently sits there. But it would handle a very small portion of the town, and it would be pumped to this new pump station. In addition to that, we're hoping to add pervious pavers, which are more environmentally friendly, sort of meeting in the middle for the people who want more parking spaces, but also want to see better environmental impact. And we're also hoping of potentially doing some creative work down there. I won't say too much about that with the students, and some native plantings as well, some biostabilization as well.
So the cost that we mentioned, the 22 and the 15, that also covers the reinvention of what is at the wharf.
It covers the reinvention of what is at the wharf, and then we would probably pursue additional grant funding if we wanted to go above and beyond. But it also covers the relocation, and this is an important point, so thank you for mentioning that, relocation of the forced main that's located on that street right now. So that forced main also carries the wastewater, also located there, also vulnerable. We would be relocating that up to High Street. So the 22 million covers all of that. So totally revamping and making sure that our wastewater infrastructure is much more resilient to climate change on all fronts in that area.
Thank you.
Adding on to resiliency for climate change, now that I'm thinking about it, that the new pump station is fairly close to the water. Is that like the best possible use of the site? Because I mean, I know there is kind of more inland areas like near the basketball court, kind of near behind Ascension. Is this like the best? Will it last the next 60 years?
Absolutely, yeah. So when we were thinking about this project, I say we, I've been here for 2 years, and they've been thinking about this for a long time. The reason that we chose that specific location was because it's the grade. It's so far above where the floodplain is, and that's our major concern when we're thinking about that type of equipment. And if we were to move it more inland, we would be disturbing the activities in the field significantly more. In addition to that, as I mentioned, under the Sugarcliff Riverwalk, we have, and to the side of it, we have wastewater infrastructure already. So it would be extremely easy for us, not extremely easy, but extremely much easier for us to connect to what we already have working in that area, and be right next to the infrastructure that already exists. If we were to put it more inland, we'd have to extend the infrastructure under the fields, and it would be more disruptive.
I have a question. Does this take into account a potential increase in population? Is it built for like current or, larger?
That is a great question. I love that question. Absolutely. So the way that we calculate how much the wastewater infrastructure can withstand is based on modeling for not just population increase, but also peak demands during that. So what we're hoping, what we have modeled the population to increase to and more, basically. And also, a lot of people don't know this, but our wastewater treatment plant over on Fowler's Lane was built to handle much, much more capacity than we ever could reach in Ipswich. It's super interesting. People don't realize that when they were building that, it was meant for a town that was much, much bigger. So from that perspective, population growth is not a concern, and we're building it with that in mind, absolutely.
Awesome, thank you.
So for our purposes this evening, you're requesting that the school committee allow you to conduct the archaeological testing on the grounds?
Yes.
This is sort of the next step after what the school committee had given permission for a couple of months ago.
Yes.
Right,
So,
okay.
yes. So we are asking for permission to move forward with what FEMA is requesting, which is that Phase 1 archaeological survey that they would like to do next week. Much less intrusive than the last thing that we came to talk about, which are the borings. Again, just out of respect, wanted to come here and make sure that you all were okay with us moving forward with what they've requested for us to do.
So is there a motion to approve the archaeological study at 25 Green Street?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Jen, second by Sasha. All in favor? Okay, how many of us? 6-0. Motion passes. Look forward to hearing about it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm excited to come back and tell you about it.
Awesome. All right.
First day of school.
All right, next item is tri-board recap and next steps. So I was thinking, as this is a bit of a larger discussion, I'm thinking we can go one at a time, giving feedback, and then after everybody's had a chance to speak once, then we can kind of go back around as needed. The first thing we can talk about is the strategic plan presentation that we received at that meeting. And so the purpose of the conversation will be just kind of discuss our reactions and then to think about what we need to do as next steps to help that committee along. And Kate, if you don't mind, I was thinking you could maybe kick it off since you're on the liaison on that committee.
Sure. Yes, so I am the liaison to this strategic planning committee. So I thought two members are here tonight. I think they gave a great presentation at Tri-Board. Was helpful. You know, it's not done, but I think it was a nice sort of state of where the committee is. So I left the Tri-Board feeling like we, as a school committee, need to work on some numbers for them about particularly the elementary building project. The number currently in the model, as we know, as we heard, is a $60 million cost to the taxpayer after an assumed 40% reimbursement from MSBA, which assumes a $100 million building. So that was sort of what's plugged into the model as of now. And again, this isn't finalized. That's where we are now. And I believe that assumes a borrowing year of 2028. So I think the committee seems to be looking to us for any sort of tweaking of that number. So in my mind, I think perhaps I could sit down with Superintendent Blake and Tom to work on that a little bit more. I did do a little bit of digging into existing buildings that have been built by MSBA recently. So I think we just need to make sure we're comfortable with that assumed 40% MSBA number. To me, that seems, it might be a little bit high, but I think I need to do a little digging. And I think we have all that data. We just need to sort of dig into it a little bit more. And then are we comfortable with that $100 million number in the model? I did a little bit of digging. There's a couple of recently opened schools. One was $98 million, one was $110 million. The enrollments were higher than I anticipate we'll have. So I felt comfortable, at least at that stage of the proposal, to have that number in there of 100. But I think we could do a little bit more work on that. And the other big thing I think that we acknowledge, the Strategic Planning Committee acknowledges that needs to be added to the list is Whittier Tech. So I did hear from Carol Sullivan, who watched Tri-Board. She emailed me late that night, or tomorrow, the next day, and said, I watched the Tri-Board. She had spoken with the superintendent at Whittier, who feels that we should plug in the number from the prior project that they had submitted to MSBA. So I believe that number for Ipswich was 20.4 million, bonded over 34 years. So I did forward that to the Strategic Planning Committee. So I imagine we'll roll that into our model. And Whittier has submitted a statement of interest to the MSBA, so they're on the same timeline as us in terms of hearing back in December. And they're still in talks with the Northern Essex Community College about a shared campus. So their project is very sort of amorphous at this point, because they're trying to see if that could be a possibility. But so they said for now, they think it's reasonable to plug in the $20.4 million from the last project. So that's, I think, where I stand on strategic planning.
Just quick question. I've been hearing that there's like a model school program the MSAP does. Have we looked into doing a model school at the Doyon site? Because I know when they were talking about the public safety building, how it's significantly cheaper to go with a pre-approved, pre-designed school. Is that looked into at the Doyon site behind the current school?
Yeah, I mean, I think we certainly will. But I think, personally, I think locking us into committing to a model school at this point to lower the number is preliminary.
Right, just-
I'd rather, I mean, the strategic planning committee seems to be taking the tact of, we want to be, not that we want to overestimate, but we don't want to sort of lowball things. We want to say,
Right.
what a more realistic. So I don't want to say we won't pursue a model school, but I'm hesitant to sort of commit to it at this point because we don't know if it could work for us. So I think once we get in, we should absolutely look at the model schools and see if that could work for us.
And then, are there any other alternatives to Whittier? Because, I mean, I don't know how many students we send to Whittier, but I can't imagine it's more than 100.
It's about 24 a year, so yeah, there might be.
About 100?
No, about 24,
Oh,
25.
okay. So is there any alternatives to that, or is that just like we have to?
That's.
No, I mean, there are lots of other
that a can of worms?
conversations. It's not a can of, I mean, it might be a can of worms. It's a bigger conversations that are happening among all of the town managers in the, I think, 11 sending districts that are looking at the contract. And so I think there are a lot of moving parts to Whittier. But it seems like the best step forward, at least right now, for this model is to put in that prior number.
No,
But
that
it
makes
doesn't
sense, but
mean that it won't change.
It's like
Yeah.
20 whatever million for 25 kids.
So
For a building that lasts 50 years, just to be,
Yeah.
Carol Sullivan actually presented at FinCom at their last meeting, and their recordings online, so I can send that out. I thought she answered a lot of the questions we're talking about with Whittier. And I can't remember if I sent this to the whole group or not, but we had thought maybe she would come to the next tri-board meeting in the fall, but it seems that the timing is going to be better for Whittier to present in early next year, as they'll know a decision from the MSBA at that point. Thank you, Kate. Anybody else want to go next about the strategic plan? Sasha?
Yeah, quickly, I appreciate the work that you and the entire planning committee did in preparing it overall, not just for the school piece. I think it's particularly helpful for the town to get an understanding of long range, what are some of those bigger items, so that we can make sure that we're getting ahead of it, we can be proactive instead of responding only in urgent situations. I think an important aspect of what you brought up with the school building is that we are directionally correct on the dollar amount, not precisely accurate at this point. It's just way too early. Maybe all of you know that, but I think it's important as we talk to the public and be watching or hearing about this later. Our intention is to get to a number within a certain range that we say it's approximately this amount, and as we get closer and we move through the process, that's where we'll get to greater specificity. So right now, it's that approximate number. So it's within 5%, 10% estimate is important for us to be able to set the right direction, and then we get to precision later.
Thank you, Sasha. Jen?
I kind of felt that evening, and I'm still feeling that the calendar is kind of putting the cart before the horse with these numbers. We're still not accepted into a process. We haven't met as a working group. I think it's very important to have an idea of numbers. But I felt like to make any public decision on what we want is, I think we talked about that a lot last year as far as changing the priority of the school. If we are fortunate enough to get accepted into the process this year, we have a lot of work to do to figure out what we want in different scenarios. And I understand that the town needs a number, but I felt like that whole discussion was asking the town or the other boards what they wanted, and we haven't come out with a decision, and it felt a bit like we need to get accepted. We need to have this discussion amongst us before we ask the town boards what they want, because we don't know what the choices are. And it went right back to the last the last time we were accepted and the failed vote and what everybody's choices were then. And I feel like we're in a different place and we should start anew, but we shouldn't be putting the cart before the horse by having board decisions before we're accepted and before we've made a board decision.
By board decision, are you talking about like how we talked at our retreat to take a position on kind of our view of where the project might go?
I think that was a discussion at our retreat, like not a vote at the retreat. Like we're going to have a discussion about where we think we might go. But that's not like a voted decision.
But a position.
Yeah, but we haven't done that yet. And we were asking the other boards what their opinion is on that night. And I don't think that August 6th was the time to get FinCom's opinion about something that we haven't hashed out ourselves, nor do we know where it's going to land in December.
So I think what you're asking is if we should make up the mind about, is it one school or two school, and then how does that, because there are very different numbers. I think it was a difference of millions of dollars, whether it was two schools that were built or one big school. Is that what you're referring to, or is it more of?
No, I think even it was suggested that there's pressure on us about a model school, and model school isn't even on here, but that could very much be part of the discussion. That was the MSBA phone call that I was on with Jack McCarthy 2 years ago. He suggested that Ipswich look at that, and we haven't looked at that because we haven't been part of the process. And that discussion was after the failed vote. And he said, I think Ipswich should look at model schools. You know, they're less expensive and they get built faster. So I just felt like this was cart before the horse times two.
I hear your concerns, but I guess the whole objective of the strategic plan is to kind of give a best guess so that you can have that big picture. So I think how we get there, we can figure that out, hopefully with this workshop that we're planning. Thank you. Jenny, would you like to go next?
Oh, sure. Thank you to the committee who did this. It's overwhelming work, so thank you for doing this. Regarding the schools, and so it's what we're here for, I get what Jen's saying. It's hard without the actual numbers, you know, to decide. I know that's what we talked about, and that's what we're going to do, is decide before we get accepted, but it's hard to make a decision on numbers that we don't know. You know, we don't know what the cost of, unless somebody does, a cost of a, you know, two schools, model schools. You know, that option, like Jen was saying, that's not in here. So, you know, it's hard to make a decision based on numbers that we think might, you know, or it doesn't present all the options of like a two model schools. So.
But we could easily find those numbers. We could easily come up with, I mean, model schools are built. We could easily find those numbers. And to be frank, I think we have a sense. It's not like we have no idea. Like, we could easily find out how much it costs. Not exactly, obviously. 'Cause
Right.
It's maybe in 3 years, 5 years, 7 years.
Yeah.
But it's not like we have,
No idea.
I mean, I think we have a very good understanding that a combined building is going to be significantly cheaper than two buildings.
Right,
I mean, I don't think that's an unknown.
right.
We might not know exactly the difference, and I do think the model schools
Sure.
would help bring
No,
that closer
I-
together, but
Yeah.
it's-
No, I agree with that. But it doesn't give that option on the strategic planning report. You know, it doesn't say that, you know, two model schools and give that. I just think that would be, you know, good for everybody to know, like, okay, these are the options. And then, whatever decision, we'll go all in, for sure. I just want to make sure that's known. But I just want the information to be out there, like, what would the model school cost? And should I call other schools? Is that how I should do that?
I think that might,
We have a lot of that information. I guess to clarify, for the strategic plan, for other projects, it's kind of like, this is the project, this is the project. There's not a lot of, these 5 scenarios could be the project. Is the strategic planning working group looking for us to say, this is the most likely project?
yes.
Okay, so that
And
work,
this is the most likely, the closest we can come to a
Right.
cost at this point, which I would say many projects in there aren't, are estimates. It's a model.
Yeah.
So it's it's the best we can do at this point, and it's sort of going to be a living document, I think, and evolve over time as projects firm up.
so all of the discussion about comparing different projects, that might not necessarily be on the strategic planning working group. It would be more internal for us and perhaps something that could be discussed at the working group.
That's right. We have a meeting next week to prepare for that working session. This is absolutely one of the topics. And so part of it is, what information do we need to bring to that discussion? And then who else might need to be present to participate in that discussion to provide information? And so, to your point, it's important for us to know that information so that we can make a decision. I think the strategic planning group did a great job preparing what they could without input from the school committee. It's our responsibility now to provide that. And so I think everything you're bringing up, and if there are other ideas, that's what we want to bring to our working session that's coming up this fall.
Yeah. I wish that we had done that prior to the planning board, the strategic,
The
planning
tri-board.
board.
Tri-board.
Yeah, right, but before they did their report. Because, they weren't officially voting, but they were letting us know where they stood, without getting all the scenarios. I know that there's a ballpark, but I don't know if there were any other, sorry, I'm ignoring you, any other projects that we talked about the safety building, I know that. But anyway, I just think it was tough because they were giving their opinions without knowing all of the options. So, I'm trying to think of any other topics. I thought the information about Noresco was very helpful.
I can just pause
Add to
there.
that? Yes.
We'll touch on Noresco after we kind of wrap up the strategic
Oh.
planning chat, if that's all right.
Just want to say it was good.
Love that.
Okay.
Matt, do you have anything? to
I
add?
wasn't able to be there, so my opinions here are sort of somewhat maybe less informed than others. But I think for me, the important thing that I think I got out of it, from what I was able to see and talking to people, to many of you, is that decoupling of the Winthrop project from the school, from the public safety building, as those two are joined. I think that was not, that one project pushing another with everything that's happening in town, that was not going to be a positive element to this project. So I think from what I was able to glean, that there was sort of an agreement that those two should not be necessarily tethered together. Am I accurate in saying that?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. That's actually, you're the first person to mention that, and that was, I think, an important conversation. I guess I'll go real quick. I echo a lot of what everybody said. I appreciate the work that group has done. In terms of the numbers that were given for the, couple potential elementary projects, I didn't find them surprising. I found them pretty consistent with what we learned from the last project, as well as the previous strategic plan. They're very similar. So I do think we have a general idea. Again, we're working with estimates here, but that I feel pretty good about it, but I also think we should do our due diligence as a committee and, make sure we're giving that information as well. Something else to consider is kind of a do-nothing cost. I don't know if, I think depending on where our conversation goes and what we want to model, do we need to have we're going to look at, tackling one school at a time. Well, there's going to be significant capital needs for the school that would remain. So that's something else that we should be thinking about. Okay, so I guess in terms of next steps, I heard two things. I heard, Kate, you were thinking of talking to Dr. Blake and Tom, and then maybe separately the working group is going to talk, and then maybe when we have our session, we can all look at those figures together. Does
Our
that sound
intention
right?
for next Wednesday's meeting is to put together an inventory of information that we need to have a more robust conversation, around it. That might be part of it. If you want to just hold till Wednesday, we tell you what we come out with, so make sure there's no overlap. I don't think there's any reason why you wouldn't proceed with that, but that way we can give you the full list in case there's adjacent information that just makes sense for you to have as part of the broader conversation.
Awesome. Thank you. All right.
Madam Chair, do you mind a comment? It's up to you. No?
Got to stick to it.
Okay.
Sorry. Would love an email. So next on to Noresco. Jenny, would you like to start since you are excited to?
Excited. Oh, well, it was so much more clear, the presentation this time, and so I'm thankful for that. I think that it makes sense to move forward with it, given the examples of some of the things that are going to die out, you know, and if for some reason we did want to repair something that's obsolete, there's not parts for that, you know, so those things add up. So, and ultimately it's going to save money. You know, it's going to take time, but ultimately it will. And so I thought it was very positive. Yeah.
Matt, you want to go next? I know you weren't there, but did
Yeah, I
don't know
mean,
if
I
you-
think I'm on the same page as Jenny. I think the benefits of it, I mean, I understand there's probably some anxiety in town about the various dollar bills that are piling up, but I think we have to look further down the road. Perhaps that's something that, as a town, we've been guilty of over the last however many years, and that is a big reason why everything's piling in the way it is. So I think it's really important for us to be thinking long-term, and I think this project does a lot of that. In favor of it.
Keep going?
Yeah,
Sasha?
sure. I think the financial benefits, and in particular, they did a great job of highlighting the payback period for all of the changes, which is particularly important. Yeah, I thought the full report was particularly helpful, and the discussion laid out a wonderful plan of how to proceed. Very supportive of it.
I think I said everything I wanted to say at the tri-board meeting already, but I agree, this is exciting. Forward thinking, you know, I think it'll knock a lot of projects, not a lot, but, you know, some projects that we had queued up. You know, we've kind of been chipping away at the LED lighting, and this will just do it in one fell swoop. Yeah, it pays for itself. I am interested to see, I know the Finance Committee is doing a little bit more of a deep dive into it at their meeting on Tuesday, I believe. So if anyone wants to go to that or watch that after, I think that will be interesting, because I think they're really getting into the nuts and bolts of, you know, bonding and financing and all the things they dig into. So I'm curious how that goes, but in general, I'm excited about it, supportive of it. The other thing that I had expressed concern about at the tri-board meeting was the short timeline in terms of education for the community on this, because it will be at town meeting and on the ballot. So at Climate Resiliency, this can be my Climate Resiliency update, we met last night, 2 nights ago, and discussed it, and there is sort of a group forming, a community group forming to sort of spearhead some of the community outreach and stuff around this, so that's exciting.
Great.
I was very pleased with the report and the presentation. What stands out to me is Jenny made a comment, and it was true. I'm very concerned about, you know, this building and the future of energy efficiency, especially here. But when you see the price tags piling up and piling up, Jenny made a really good point, and that was there's also a list of everything they looked at that they didn't include.
Yeah.
And I thought that that was a really good point, that they're not just going to try to fix everything and spend everything, just what's important and efficient in the schools. So I was very supportive of that. Thank you, Jenny.
Good call. Great. Yeah, I agree. I support the projects. I am looking forward to watching that finance committee meeting coming up because I want to see kind of how they go through everything too. But it seems like all the projects are worthy and will lead us in the right direction. So I think in terms of action items for us.
Oh, good. I have one more thing I'd like to discuss that happened at the tri-board, but you can.
Oh, sure. Okay. But yeah, I will send around the recording of the FinCom meeting and in any other important meetings that I've become aware of that, we should be looking at or any more information to everybody to review. And then if anybody has any lingering questions, maybe you can send them to me and then you can send them to Rick. And, if there's any loose ends, hopefully we can maybe have a position on the 5th, although I know the calendars aren't always lining up perfectly for who's voting on what when, so we'll talk about it more on the 5th.
And had we looked into getting someone to come talk to us on the 5th about that potentially, or no?
About Noresco?
Yeah, no, because we sort of heard everything we need to hear, we think.
I haven't, if,
Okay, I don't
if
think we
people
need to.
feel like they would like that, we can certainly reach out. Not hearing that now, but if
Yeah, I
anything
don't think
changes,
so.
we can look into that.
I think if we had a really good presentation to us at Tri-Board. If we watch the FinCom meeting, or I think if there's questions after that, I'm not sure how many more presentations.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Awesome. All right, next item. It's nice. Oh, yes,
I
sorry,
have
go
one
ahead.
other thing
Go
that just
ahead.
that came up at the
Yeah.
tri-board that I wanted to discuss because I think there's an action item involved in it. There was the woman Beth Myers from ICAM came to talk about the audio visual situation for meetings in town. And so we had a brief discussion about this room, and I think the consensus seemed to be it's pretty good for the people at home if we use our microphones. But there's still an issue of there's no amplification in this room. So I don't know if that's something we can talk to Brian Dozer or someone about. I mean, we have a lot of stuff in this building.
There were a few
can't hear each
discussions that
other.
happened that night. We had talked also about potentially moving the meetings over to Town Hall, and I went back and forth with Stephen Crane. And in the current setup, we're not going to be able to do that because the planning board or the zoning board uses the meeting room A on Thursday nights. So if they do the upgrades to the other room at Town Hall, we may be able to move the meetings there. But the question of the amplification here, I haven't explored that.
Well, Sasha and I just found 2 speakers behind us, so can they be turned on? I don't know. I don't know.
Not sure what they're for, but
Those-
yes.
Like that, though.
Those are for the projector. Oh, that.
The JBL.
JBLs are for the projector, I'm pretty sure. They all have the same tubing for the projector computer thing.
Okay.
Something
Well,
for us to
I haven't looked into that yet.
yeah,
but we
and I'm
can,
happy to
yeah.
help if needed. I just think that seemed like an action item. And it seemed like we teased out the issue, which is amplification.
Want me to address it?
I mean,
You know what,
Just-
since it came up, sure.
you can. It's up to Diana. Yeah.
Well, but he's the person who has to do it.
It's a
As the
quick,
PAC
it's a quick answer. The speakers are here.
No,
They are connected to these microphones, but sometimes when you project, they're so close, we could run into a feedback issue.
Okay.
But we can call the gentleman who comes, the contractor who comes in to do some work. They did install a little digital mixer. It's not easy on that little digital mixer for me to make the routing happen, but we can call them and have that done. If you need more sound in the room, we can make it happen.
I have another question for you, Brian. Okay.
We'll just wait.
She's got the look.
Oh, do you have a question?
No, let's
Okay.
tackle
Table
this
it.
after.
I think
Yeah.
I jumped because he was
Okay.
he's the person who has to do the work, and I probably shouldn't have done that.
We appreciate
Thank you,
your work.
So it's possible.
Good news.
We're looking into it, I think is the. We are looking
home and
into amplification or a room change of some sort to make the meetings more accessible.
And we'll try to project.
School committee
Yeah.
bullhorns.
Really cannot hear, so speak up.
I know.
We'll look at
Megaphone.
All right. So on to the school committee calendar review and approval. So the draft is in the folder, and it's pretty standard for the first and third Thursday of the month, except for February 27th, so we don't run into vacation week. Budget calendar will be forthcoming when that's available. Are there any questions or concerns?
Now, this is subject to change as different things come up. We've been able to cancel some meetings if it was warranted. We've moved some meetings around for different reasons over the years. So this is sort of a general guideline for us, and I think maybe we might move 1 or 2 meetings a year, if that.
December 19th.
the ones that have been tricky in my experience are the February 6th and the March 6th, because you try to align that with the budget calendar. So, as jumping on that early with Tom and the other chairs is advised.
Okay.
Because sometimes it gets tricky. But I think we did a pretty good job last year.
I thought our timing last year was
Yeah.
great, so I feel
Because
like,
2 years ago was
Yeah.
a nightmare, so I learned, so I'm sharing that.
once we align the budget calendar.
Yeah.
All right.
Good.
All right. So is there a motion to approve the 24-25 school committee meeting calendar?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Sasha, second by Jen. All in favor? 6-0. We've got a calendar. Next, vote member as authorized signatory for school district warrants. So this is referring to something that's covered in policy DGA that we just reviewed last year. And so all of us school committee members get emails about the payments and warrants. So the policy says that the chair or by roll call vote, a single member shall be responsible for the review and approval of all warrants as correct and approved for payment. So Kate has been fulfilling that role for over a year and has expressed she'd be willing to continue that role. So,
Glutton for punishment, Kate.
Really not that hard.
any questions? Okay, so
You have
There-
to nominate me or
Oh, I do?
is there a
something. Appoint
motion
me, I
to,
think.
go ahead.
I'm not going to nominate myself.
How does the motion, how does the motion even work? Like, motion to nominate Kate Elliott as
Signatory for school district warrants.
signatory for school district warrants?
Second.
Okay, moved by Matt, second by Sasha. So now we go to a roll call vote. Sasha,
Yes.
Kate,
Yes.
Jen,
Yes.
I'm a yes. Jenny?
Yes.
Matt? Okay, 6-0. Congratulations, Kate. Thank you.
And thank you.
All
I
right.
had suggested,
Thank you.
and I'm learning over time, you're welcome.
Pay our bills.
Perhaps next late summer or fall, we could have an agenda item that's just like appointments. And it's just, we just crank them all out in one agenda item.
Yeah. That would be nice, I agree.
Instead of
Yeah.
town hall emailing us and.
All right. Next item are the building inspection review comments. So at the beginning of each school year, a school committee member or a small group of members is invited to tour each school and inspect it for its readiness for opening. And so welcoming those who attended the tours to provide their feedback. Jenny, do you want to go first on telling us about Doyon?
Sure. I met with Adam Mullen, and he's very excited. The school looks great. The halls are, empty and shiny, and yeah, I saw the front desk staff were excited. So it was a good feeling there. And the rooms look good. There's some finishing touches that they have to do. But yeah, it's a great atmosphere. Yeah.
How's the new playground? Just
How's it look? It looks great.
any
Yeah,
slides? Do you test any of it?
I did the climbing apparatus, held me fine. I'm kidding. I didn't. You could, I bet you thought I did. Something I would do.
I totally think you would do that, which is fine.
If I can chime in between each visit, just to provide some, I don't know, color commentary, if you will. One of the major projects at the Paul F. Doyle Memorial School this summer was the floor. We had to dig up the floor to repair some pipes underneath and abate some asbestos. So that all happened early summer, went without a hitch. They've got the floor sealed up, and I don't know if it was tiled when you were there or not.
Yes,
but
it
it's
blends right
been,
in.
yeah,
Yep.
it's tiled. You'd never know that they did any work over there. That was really the major work that happened over there, aside from the general cleaning, and they're in great shape and ready to go.
Awesome. Did they, were there any projects over the summer since last year? Because I know they've done a lot of putting up walls, taking down walls. Was anything like that necessary this year at Doyon?
We put one doorway in to the principal's office. It was just a matter of cutting out the not particle board, the sheetrock.
Okay,
I can come up with the word sheetrock. So that was it.
awesome. All right, so Haley toured Doyon, and she's not here, but she sent me her notes, so I'll just go through them quickly. Did I say Doyon? Sorry. Haley toured Winthrop. Okay, so I'm sure if you've driven by, you all know this. She said the new pavement outside looks great. When she was there, they still had to put in the painting for the parking spots and permanent signage. And let's see, some major benefits are that it includes grading for handicap accessibility in the front. It added changes to the crosswalk direction for better safety in front of the building, and the firehouse crosswalk extension. There's also approximately 20 new parking spots, which is awesome.
Holy moly.
Yeah, it's very exciting. And they designated 10, I'm sorry, I'm not sure how many spots, but they designated some spots for 10-minute drop-off for pre-K parking. Again, when she was there, she said there was still a big project under construction, so Dr. Blake might have an update. They are combining an English language learning room and a special education room together, and have the ABA room and speech and language split out into another room. And that includes a separate entrance for drive-in services. Some concerns she noted were that what's called the White House, which is actually a old trailer, is disconnected from the main building, and there are no bathrooms. Space is a major concern for the entire building, and there's also a drain outside the back main door to the playground that is not working properly and is impacting the accessibility to get to the playground. And then not related to the tour, but maybe, Tom, you can, I don't know if you'll have information about this on your update later on, but she said that she learned that the Title I funding has been cut from $160,000 to $77,000, which will create major budgetary challenges. All right. Yes. So the
Yeah, so I'll just update
Yeah.
folks on the Winthrop School. So the parking lot did come out great. We worked very closely with Frank Ventimiglia from Department of Public Works to make that project happen. They did a beautiful job. We were able to add additional parking spots, change some of the grading. It is all permanently lined now, and I believe we're still waiting on some of the signage, because that you have to order and then install later. So that's all in great shape there. The drain out in back of the school, we've had issues on and off over the years. I did alert Rick Clark to it yesterday, and he had somebody go over and look at it today. There is a lot of debris in the drainage basin underneath, and then we think what's going to need to happen is once they come to clean out the basin, they're going to have to probably jet out the output line, because that's probably got a lot of debris in it as well. I think the debris comes down off of the playground area when it rains hard. So they are aware of that, and we'll be repairing that. Room 8 is the room that's under construction. We essentially took one big classroom space and put up walls to carve it into 3 separate sections for student services. It took a lot longer to get the plans back from the architect, because we couldn't just have our contractor come in and put up walls. It had to go through a formal process of getting architectural drawings done. Once we finally got those back, then we could contact the contractor. When I was there last night, about 4:30, 5 o'clock, the sheetrock people had just left. So it was sheetrocked and just needed to be painted, and then the floors cleaned up as a result of that. So we anticipate that that's going to be done as promised before teachers come back on Monday. So other than that, I think that building is also in great shape. Floors are all done. Teachers have been in there all week, setting up their classrooms. What we call the White House, we did have a construction project there where we put in a new ramp this year that's much more solid and ADA compliant, and I believe that's been finished now. It looked like it was completed when I saw it yesterday.
Just for the sheetrock subdividing classroom, what was that for? Like to make a...
We just took one big classroom and carved it up into 3 smaller learning spaces for speech and occupational therapy and some of our students with behavioral needs.
So is that a change from, because when I was in elementary school and when they had the, they used to put you into like the cubicles. Do they not have those anymore? Is this like the new dyslexic and dysgraphic groups? Because I remember it was next to the preschool. Is this like the...
Yeah, no, this is
Just
different
curious.
service deliveries.
Okay. I didn't know if it was full classes that were in
No,
like
no.
a third of a
Individual
Okay.
students.
Gotcha.
That's been a struggle historically to find space to
Yes.
deliver those services.
Yeah.
So this
Yeah.
seems like an improvement over what
Mm-hmm.
we've been doing.
Yep.
Yeah, we were putting like office cubicles.
Well, and enrollment changes, so sometimes you may have the ability to, you're a little tighter on space or less tight, depending on the years.
All right. And Kate, did anybody join you or?
Nobody joined me.
Okay,
but
please
that's okay.
share.
I had 3 administrators. So I went around with Mr. Mitchell, Mr. Ginalfi, and Mr. Fitzgerald, touring the middle school, high school. Similarly, the buildings look in good shape. There's a fair amount of stuff to do in the next however many days, but they had a plan, and there's fair amount of people there doing work. Good energy with the staff. I saw there's a fair amount of people in, teachers, some clerical staff, so everybody seemed chipper and cheery. They did report they got a late start on some of the projects this summer. I think, a little bit of challenges with the facilities director turnover, just things, maybe work, I don't know. I don't know what the reason was, but there was just, that didn't help, I think. So I think just some things got a little bit later of a start. And they've also had a fair amount of custodial turnover, not this summer particularly, but maybe over the last year. So they are staffed, but they had lost some sort of institutional knowledge from some custodians that had been there a long time. So I think we can sympathize when you lose some institutional knowledge. It's tough. So highlights, there are brand new floors on Main Street and sort of the breezeway by the gym. So you can check it out. Very nice, new, shiny floor. The plan was for it actually to extend into the PAC lobby, and they didn't finish that part of it. So it seems like they're maybe hopefully going to finish that up over winter break. But the new floor looks really great. They also redid the men's bathroom on, again, Main Street, closest to the PAC. New tile, separation between the urinals, new doors. I went in, looks great. Never been in there before, but, and that's nice because that's our, sort of our public bathroom too for sporting events and PAC events and stuff. So to have that upgraded is nice. And I believe there's a plan for the women's bathroom on Main Street to be replaced as well. We went to the C wing, which is the visual arts wing. There's a lot of rearranging there. There used to be an old bank branch that's now been turned into a health classroom that's downstairs by the, actually kind of lost track of where it was.
Cafeteria.
But, yeah, near the cafeteria. All the guidance rooms got painted. The guidance staff picked their colors. It's all nice and freshly painted. There's a bank of lockers arriving tomorrow in the middle school. You can imagine the middle school lockers get pretty heavily used and abused. So Mr. Fitz is anxiously awaiting those locker arrivals. And actually, we had a nice conversation about the high school lockers don't get used, really, because high schoolers don't use them. So we talked about maybe next year you could salvage some of the high school lockers in the middle school, and then Mr. Mitchell was saying we could put in a bench where we kind of got into this interesting, it's too late this year, but kind of thinking, I got them talking about could they share resources, because we have these high school lockers that are old, but never used, so they're in pretty good shape, so that was interesting. Lots of new carpet, a lot of new cabinetry in classrooms. Most of the pods on the second floor have new LED lighting, so it's much brighter, which is nice. And I was surprised. They said there's only 3 new staff at the middle school and 4 new staff at the high school, so the vast majority of their staff came back, which was nice. Finally, we walked out to the new learning area with the orange pavilion. And I remember looking at the plans thinking that was a ton of asphalt, which I didn't love, but actually when you're back there, it's great. Mr. Fitz said the kids love it. The grass is coming in really nice, so we were all saying it looks like it had been there for years. So that was a long project that took a long time to get done, but it's really great, and it looks like it's just, I can't imagine it wasn't there before. So it was good. That's it.
Okay. In terms of this building, I would say, from walking around today, they're in much better shape than they were
Yeah, this is
even
a few
2
days
days ago. It always comes together right at the end. We did have all of the damage that was caused by the flooding last year in the middle school and some in the high school pods. That was all repaired this summer by Service Master and the company that we worked with to install the new cabinetry. So that was Kate's point there. That was an enormous project because the rooms that were affected were science rooms, middle school science rooms, and they had a ton of stuff. Service Master packed it all up for the teachers and moved it all into the hallways. And just this past week, they were able to finish up and move the stuff back into classrooms. And now it has to get back into the cabinets and get squared away for school to start. But all of that work has been completed. As Kate said, we redid the boys' bathroom with the partitions here because they were in really rough shape last year. There was one partition that was completely missing. It was ripped off the wall. So we redid all of that this summer. The flooring project was initially scheduled, and we had hoped to do the rotunda and the front entrances for both the middle and high school and all of this potentially this summer. But the contractors actually got started like 3.5 weeks late. And so that put us behind to begin with. No fault of ours, was the contractor just didn't get here. But when they started chipping up the concrete, the tiles, when what they found was that there were areas, small areas of where the cement was compromised. And so what they had to do is they had to fill in all of that and essentially grade it before they could put that epoxy floor down. So it took a lot longer than they had anticipated. So there are a number of factors there. But I made the decision with Brad last week that if they couldn't guarantee that they were going to be done with another section, whether it was the pack hallway here or the other end, to just pull the plug on the project for now, and we'll deal with it at a later date. I'm concerned because even at Christmas time, while it's a 2-week break for us in schools, with the holidays mixed in there, it's not, I don't believe it's going to be enough work days for them to tackle either of those sections, so that the rest of this may end up waiting till next summer, unfortunately. But we'll see. Let me just think. All the classrooms are pretty much put back together, cleaned and put back together. We did have a full complement of staff this year, although, to your point, Kate, the institutional knowledge isn't there, but they were able to get everything done. I know early in the summer they did the upper gym that was redone, and the floor cleaned down on the lower gym. So overall, I think we're in, I won't say great, but we're in very good shape to start the year. I think that by Monday, when folks are back in the building, we'll be in great shape.
Exciting. Any other questions? Great. All right. Thank you for those of you who were able to tour. All right. Next is discussion on special town meeting warrant. So this is a little tricky because the timing, as I have relayed to you all, it didn't work out perfectly. So the draft warrant just popped in our folder this morning, I believe, and I actually just got a chance to look at it. Luckily, it's very short. So I'm thinking we can just very briefly just go over each of the articles. But I'm imagining we might have a slightly longer discussion once we get to the 3A article, but not too long because there's going to be more information to come. Yes. Because the task force is presenting to the planning board right now. So let's just, walk through it super quick. So Article 1 is amend the municipal budget, state aid. I think that's a pretty standard article. Any questions or discussion at this point? Again, we can go more into detail at our next meeting. Article 2, amend school budget, state aid. Do you want to talk about this now, or do you want to wait and include it in your financial report?
Your choice.
Let's do all the finances together. So
Okay.
Tom will give us a whole lay of the land in a little bit. All right, next is appropriation to Essex Tech. That's another one that we encounter every year at this time. Any questions on that one? Okay. Article 4, the HERO Act. This is actually the first I'm seeing it, and there's not a lot of information in here, so any questions other than we need more information?
If we're voting on these in 2 weeks, hopefully there'll be more information.
Agreed.
Or we might not need to take a position on some of these.
Yeah, I think we're going to have to figure all of that out.
I mean, Essex we won't, because I don't think that gets finalized till October 1st, the enrollment, or,
Correct.
so
Okay.
that's fine. That's always the same.
Yep. All right. Article 5, increase income limit for Clause 41A, senior tax deferral program. This is the first time seeing this wording also. I kind of heard a little bit about this, but I personally need to do my own research into this. I don't know if anybody else has anything to add.
Is this something you think we need to take a vote on or no?
I don't even know enough to
To,
weigh in on that, but we can talk about it when we do have our vote, what we should be voting on. Right, Article 6, funding for community-wide surveying of historic resources. This is also the first time I'm seeing this one, so I will have to look into this personally. And does anybody else have any comments or context? All right, flying through. Article 7, open space bond parcel list edition, 56 Fellows Road. Another one that we'll have to look through. Okay, Article 8, the debt exclusion for energy efficiency improvements, NORESCO. I think we discussed that a good amount earlier. Does anybody have anything to add right now? Okay, next. Final is Article 9, amend zoning bylaws, add section 9.5, section 3A, multifamily overlay district. So again, we have not received a presentation for this. We're going to be reviewing the planning board meeting that's happening now, and then potentially lining up a speaker for our next meeting. But I did want to open it if anybody had any preliminary thoughts or questions, because if we do have questions, we could kind of get those in line and then send them out to either the task force or the planning board in anticipation of our next meeting.
It seems like it is still a very fluid, a lot of information. Some of it has stayed the same, some of it has changed. So I think it's important for us, obviously, and the public to fight through and watch them. Watch the meetings, don't just vote, but have an educated opinion. And that's across the board with, all things that you're going to have a say in. Because it's very interesting and, but you got to grin and bear it and get through the meetings, but it's very important. No offense to the people on the committee. But it's really informative.
Are their meetings recorded? I mean, this one, they're in room A, so they should be recorded.
Yeah, I saw their most recent
Board, sorry, the 3A.
Yes.
task force, yes. It's a funny question for you to ask. Funny question for you to ask, knowing somebody on the workforce.
Clearly, I don't watch them. I will watch the planning board one tonight.
Yeah,
And I haven't had a chance to read through this. I will read through this. So if we have questions that we could forward them to you. And
Yes,
you could forward them to
yep,
someone.
exactly. And usually the ICAM recordings are up like the next day, so I'll hopefully send that out right as it comes out so we can all have a good time watching that this weekend. Awesome. I think the question that we're all probably thinking is how or will this affect our numbers and our enrollments in our schools? And I think that we'll be able to get a better hold on an answer to that, or, what to expect.
Yeah, I think that could be a good question for someone if we do get someone to come and speak to us, that is a good
Yeah.
question.
Awesome. Okay. All right. Any other questions or comments about the town meeting warrant?
So you were going to look into whether we need to vote next week, or potentially we could vote the meeting after,
Yeah.
based on income.
Yep. Okay. Next, long-anticipated finance update.
I know.
Yes. So good evening. I have 5 items to report on, which I'll endeavor to do efficiently. The closeout of the fiscal '24 budget, the closeout of fiscal '24 revolving accounts, the opening of the fiscal '25 budget, the Chapter 70 state aid number that Diana was referring to earlier, and a report on the Title I grant was part of my thinking anyways, so I'm glad that you mentioned that as well. So in your packet are reports. If I could call your attention to the one that's the fiscal '24 end-of-year report. And certainly, I'm pleased to report that we've had a successful close for the fiscal '24. We went through participated with the town finance department in about a 2-week process for the town audit, which occurred last week and the week prior. We don't have the results of that yet, but I anticipate those that being a positive outcome, as last year's report was a positive outcome. Pleased to report that we have paid all of the bills for fiscal '24, and which includes some of the end of year spending that we were asked to do to be able to preserve some resources in fiscal '25, as well as to take full advantage of the resources that were available in fiscal '24. In looking at a couple things on that page, on that report rather, call your attention, if I could, to page 21. About 3/4, so almost all the way down. The second to the bottom line, which starts with the numbers S9109999. The abbreviation stands for Transfer to Trust. You see the $950,000 figure there. That represents as we close fiscal year '24, the school committee had agreed with the finance committee that would be the appropriation from the closing of fiscal year '24 to support the stabilization fund moving into future years. So you see that was successfully accomplished. Just so cutting to the very bottom line, and certainly able to answer any and all questions that the committee may have. As we closed out the year, we have encumbered $701,831,000, which really represents fourth quarter bills, some of which were from June, that as of the close of this report, which was the end of July. You'll see on here the date of the actual close of fiscal '24 occurred on July 26th. The state gives us a 60-day window in which we close, but the town likes us to close before the end of July, so we closed on July 26, 2004. So that $701,000 represents really fourth quarter bills, or by and large some June bills that hadn't hit the books yet as far as being paid, but we certainly encumbered and plan to do that. One thing that I always like to be able to do is to leave a cushion at the end of the year. So if for some reason there's something that comes in that's unforeseen, or there's an overage in a cost that we haven't perhaps encumbered enough, or it does happen from time to time that a bill that a staff member isn't anticipating comes in. So you see there is a bottom line available balance in fiscal '24 of $45,000. I think that figure could be consumed when the final bills come in, or it would remain on the books and transferred back to the town as unused expenses for fiscal '24. I will also point out that of the $701,000 that are encumbered from end-of-year expenses, 402,000 of those represent special education costs. So we continue to see, we are meeting our obligations, of course, but we continue to see those costs continue to grow.
Is that outplacements, or is that?
Those are all outplacements, so those are out-of-district tuition costs, yeah. So, the bottom line is we managed and closed fiscal year '24 to plan, and managed to address some of the end-of-year needs that the district felt, many of which were unforeseen. So that I'm pleased to report. Yeah, of course.
With the work that Brian talked about to the floors that wasn't able to be finished over the summer, is that encumbered? And what's our timing on having to do that work?
So those are, I'm sorry. So those are capital funds. Those are not operating dollar funds, yep.
And then,
Fiscal '25 capital funds.
okay, thank you. And then what's the timing for needing to return the 45,000 or whatever that gets down to back to the town? How much time do you have before you can do that?
Well, ultimately, that's now in the town's hands. As if there are additional resources, or excuse me, additional bills that may come in, we will have that as a cushion to make sure that those get paid. That will go. The town will have to declare its free cash going into the fall town meeting, so it'll occur probably the end of September.
Okay.
In broad strokes, I can get an exact date,
No,
but it's.
the approximate timing is what I'm looking for. Perfect, thank you.
So next, if I can call your attention to the large spreadsheet titled Fiscal 23-24 Revolving Gift Stabilization Balances. This is the last month, meaning June 30th, or actually June 28th, the last business day of the year. And this is the report that we've presented since the beginning of last year in the format that the committee, I believe the committee is accustomed to. I'm pleased to say that the revolving funds are in good shape, but there are a couple things I would like to call to your attention as we have discussed throughout. Are you folks not seeing that in your?
We're good.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Thanks,
So as a number of things that we've talked about as far as our continued growing reliance on revolving funds, I think this is the first glimpse of some of that, and I think frankly, when I present the opening balances for fiscal '25, which will be at the September meeting, that'll be even more demonstrative. So just quickly, highlighting a few, starting with Q01, which is the FEFI's contribution. You see that our FEFI's contribution throughout the year was pretty much maintaining at $1.2 million. The number had fluctuated as things were spent, but more significantly, the number had gone up a couple of times as the town treasurer applied, interest payments and those sorts of things. But all of the bills from the Payne grants and the TWIG grants would be included in the payment of what at the end of May was a balance of $1.2 million, and at the end of June, down to $341,000. So that represents the paying out of the Payne grants and the 2 cycles of TWIG grants, leaving a balance in FEFI's of $341,766. There really isn't anything, quite interesting other in the rest of the Q accounts, but certainly if anyone has questions, please do. I'd like to then pop down to the R, which stands for revolving fund accounts. And if we look at, on a couple of instances, there is a strong relationship, and a couple there isn't, and I want to point that out particularly between what would be the opening balance, meaning August 31 of '23, and what would be the closing balance, June 28th of '24. I'm going to skip over high school athletics and go to choice, but I'm going to come back to high school athletics. And this is one of those examples of what I mentioned a few moments ago about our increasing reliance on school choice. that we opened school choice with $1.75 million in the school choice account, and we closed the year with 1.424. Now, that obviously represents a couple of things. It represents a lower number of school choice kids, so there's lower revenue, and we spent about $300,000 as per the budget, so it was part of the plan for FY24, but we charged, obviously, the planned expenditures there. So that number, the 1.4 million, and we are slated to charge about $500,000 to choice in fiscal year '25, meaning the year we're in. So we're going to see, again, a lower set of revenue because we have fewer choice youngsters, and we're going to be charging $200,000 more in fiscal '25 than we did in fiscal '24. So we'll just call that out. It's part of the budget conversation, but we spent more time on this back in March, right? So I don't mean to be the bad news bear here at the opening of the year, but just to continue to call the committee's attention to those sorts of things. Skipping down to what is R11 circuit breaker, we had what we were able to do, and I will report, positively about this. One of the goals that we had this year was to do the best we could to maintain circuit breaker balances, and you see that we have ended the year with about $200,000 more than we started the year. And that was because we were able to apply some end-of-year balances to special education tuitions coming out of '24 and using less circuit breaker money to be able to preserve that, as we're going to need healthier balances in some of these revolving funds. So whereas we would have charged more to circuit breaker had we not had some available resources at the end of the year. So I wanted to call that out. So that's actually a positive from where we started the year and where we're now ending the year with available balances in circuit breaker. I think perhaps the next thing I'd like to highlight is all the way down in the bottom, RL, the revolving fund for school food services. Would really like to report a very successful year there. The committee may recall at the beginning, or maybe last summer in the opening the year, the food service director and I really pulled things apart last summer and put a budget around school food service. We had done the same for Tiger Tots. I can harken back to that one if the committee's interested. But school food services would really had a successful year. We are also able to do some things that hadn't been done in a while or had needed to be done. The purchase of equipment. I know I reported that a couple times throughout the year. We installed a new dishwasher here at the high school cafeteria. So we were able to do a lot of things, and with the additional state and federal support, which obviously has to take some of the credit for this. We can manage it well, but also the resource needs to be there. This also reflects the first full year of 100% reimbursement for school for student lunches and breakfast meals. So we are relying on school food service in fiscal '25 as well, to assume some additional cost for utilities and such, which is appropriate. They're using those services, so we're not just inappropriately charging them there. We are very appropriately charging them there. The two accounts that I wanted to say don't really relate to the opening of the year and the closing of the year would be high school sports, high school athletics, and school transportation. So if you're comparing the first column with the last, that's not a fair point of comparison because the last column represents the close of the year, meaning fiscal '24, and doesn't represent the revenue that's been brought in the month of August or will be brought in September. So if you see the revenue from August 31st for high school sports at $138,000, we close the year with $38,000. That swing doesn't show any of the fall sports fees that would have come in the August report. meaning last August, which I will obviously represent at the September report. So those accounts that rely on revenue coming in, like high school sports as well as school bus transportation, you can't exactly make the comparison, the first column to last on this one. So I hope that's clear. Okay. The last thing to swing down in the rest of the report for would be the last two lines, T29 and T31. T29, which is, again, the fund code. The school stabilization fund is at the end of fiscal '24. We're showing a $32,467 balance. That is how we close fiscal '24 with the school stabilization fund. That is inclusive of the $950,000 transfer. The special education stabilization fund, the only difference between the opening of the year and the closing of the year would represent really some interest payments that we would have received. We opened the year at $623,000 and closed the year at $673,000. We did not charge anything to that fund in fiscal '24, nor did we really add anything of substance to it other than the resources that the town treasurer applies. I think we had a good year to budget for use of revolving and stabilization accounts, but I wanted just to walk us through some of those highlights.
Thank you.
Any
John?
questions?
My only question is, I think I asked last time, what is middle school / high school R16 parking pass? Because it's $27,514 and it hasn't changed throughout the entire year. Like no interest payments, just.
No, the dollar amount is relatively small enough that it really wouldn't be generating interest. That we don't pool, this isn't one big pool of money that gets distributed. And parking passes would be charged when the school deems that they need to make that charge. So this represents that we did not make any deposits. We didn't collect any such fees last year.
Right.
I have a question about preschool cost.
Oh, sure.
And this might be too detailed for this conversation, but when my kids were in preschool in Tiger Tots in Winthrop, from one year to the next, it went up a
Just
couple
clarify,
$100.
Tiger Tots is for the employees at the
Oh,
school.
sorry, okay.
Through
That's
public
why,
preschool.
There were two
that's why I
things.
couldn't
Yeah.
figure out the price.
There's
Thank you.
Preschool and Tiger Tots.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Yeah,
At
different.
preschool, thank you, at Winthrop,
Yep.
went up, I don't know what year it was, but when my daughter was in it, it was 2 something. And then when my son went in the next year, it was 4 something. So I don't know if I'm sure you don't have the cost easily found, but
I don't off the top of my head. I apologize for
but
that.
it went up significantly, maybe 2 something more. And I was wondering why it wasn't gone up, like, why didn't it go up in increments? You know, and this is just
Are you
for
talking
future.
historically at the time of your children or in this past year?
Well, I think it was, 2 something for a while. And instead of 6 years ago, it would go up $50. And the next year, 50. And so it wasn't this crazy jump of a few $100, that was shocking to us anyway. If that, just so that moving forward, if there is going to be a cost to preschool or whatever, that it goes up in increments and not waiting until a certain point and then you have to nearly double it.
Sure.
Just.
So I think
That's
I
a
understand the
specific
question. If I'm understanding the question, it's more about the methodology about increasing the fee
Yes.
versus wanting me to answer something from a couple of years ago.
Right.
Okay,
Just,
fair enough.
just,
I gotcha.
just a lesson.
Yep.
Is something that it was surprising to me. And moving forward, if something does have to go up, it goes up in increments.
Mm-hmm.
So
in both the cases of the preschool tuition and the Tiger Tots tuition, we work with the 2 principals and the special education staff on the preschool tuitions.
Okay.
And those go up as part of anticipated increases that may be necessary to cover the growth in costs
Yeah.
for the program only. We're pretty much driven by, staff costs and resources for the programmatic needs to
Yeah.
serve the kids.
Yeah.
The increment there is relatively small. I would say it was 3 or 4% this year, but I can certainly look that up and get it to you.
That's appropriate.
Yeah, and the same thing for Tiger Tots. We pulled that, that was another budget that we pulled apart last year and applied actually a budget to it. There had not been an actual orchestrated budget in Tiger Tots in the past. And those rates did go up for fiscal year '25, but also, but very modestly.
Yeah.
It may be in the 4 or 5% range, but very modestly. And after a fair amount of conversation and planning that the Tiger Tot director had done in comparing the rates with other programs, and appreciating what the nature of the program is intended to be, meaning serving the Ipswich staff.
Right.
So there's a appreciation that it should be modestly priced, but competitive, because we have to pay a competitive wage in order to hire
Right.
Tiger Tot staff. So we can't lowball the tuition, nor do we want to have it perceived that the taxpayer is somehow offsetting the cost of childcare, right? And we want to make sure that those two things are in check.
Thank you.
Yep. All right. Okay. Next, fiscal year +25, also in your material, looking like the fiscal year '24 report did. We have opened fiscal '25 successfully. If we can just hop to the bottom page 24. You see we ran this report earlier today to get as much included. What I wanted to include, frankly, to make today's run was today's payroll. So this represents 4 pay periods in fiscal year '25, today being a payday. So you see under the appropriated budget, the budget of fiscal year '25 is $39,616,403. We have so far expended a little over $4 million for $4,053,000, and we have encumbered $4.3 million. So you add those two figures together, they get you a little over $8 million or $8.3 million, and you see an available balance or an unspent balance so far of $31,229,000. We have encumbered principally costs relating to special education and utilities and contracted services, particularly for things that we needed to get going over the summer. This also represents, of course, a number of purchases that the faculty and staff would have made to prep for the opening of the school year and so forth. So there is really nothing extraordinary, which I'm pleased to report. It's always good to report there's nothing extraordinary about it's on pace and on par with the type of spending that we should see in the 60 days in or 50 days in. One thing fiscal '25 has opened well, and I'm pleased to report that. One thing to call to your attention, which sort of bleeds a little bit into the Chapter 70 conversation. If you look back, if you can toggle back and forth, you'll see that to the bottom line of fiscal '24, which is on page 24 again, there was an adjustment made, a budget adjustment, budget transfer, the second column over, of $122,227. We see that? That represents the additional bump in state aid that we received from the legislature's supplemental appropriation last summer that the fall town meeting approved to allow the budget to grow. So the approved budget in May of '23 for fiscal '24 was the first column, $37,582,66. The $122,000 represents the additional bump in state aid that town meeting approved to grow the fiscal '24 budget to $37,702,493. to see how that sort of worked. And the reason why this relates to the Chapter 70 conversation and the town meeting warrant article is that it's also happening again in fiscal '24. Excuse me, fiscal '25. So Article number 2 on the town meeting book is to ask town meeting to support the Chapter 70 supplemental appropriation of $231,809 that the legislature, in its summertime deliberations, increased Chapter 70, which obviously they increased it statewide, but nonetheless, this is the increase that we're going to be realizing. So what we will see, if town meeting supports this request, is when we look at the fiscal '25 report that you have, you'll see that second column over will grow, if town meeting supports it, by $231,000. So our budget will go from, the $39,616,000 plus 231 to be the final fiscal '25 budget. Those monies, it may be asked, I think they was asked at last town meeting, what would be our intention to spend them on, and that's certainly up to the school committee to decide. It's your budget. If the question comes up, and that my recommendation would be that we put it into a salary reserve account, because that's probably where we're going to need some additional resources as we close out fiscal '25. That's certainly your decision to make, not mine, but if that question were to come about, that's what I would recommend the committee consider doing in the immediacy of potentially on the floor of town meeting being asked that question. So I think we're certainly pleased to see and appreciative to the legislature and to our delegation for supporting increases in Chapter 70 again in fiscal '25. We were originally going to get out of the governor's budget. Have that as one of my tabs. We were originally going to get $161,000 increase over fiscal '24 coming out, and the final number coming out of the legislature, which Governor Healy signed, was the $231,000 increase. So our total Chapter 70 aid for fiscal '25 is $4,379,151. So about $4.3 million that Ipswich receives in Chapter 70, Chapter 78. There is other increases that have been reported and discussed that the town of Ipswich is receiving through the legislature's work this summer. That is not school aid. Anything called unrestricted municipal aid is not aid that is directed towards schools. Chapter 70 is the aid that's directed towards schools. It's up to the select board and the FinCom and ultimately town meeting to make some of those decisions. But Chapter 70 is specifically state aid for education. The unrestricted municipal aid is to be spent, frankly, as the municipality needs, in the same way that Chapter 70 is up to you folks to distribute budget-wide as needed. So I think Ipswich probably could use some more state support, but the state support that we're able to get opening fiscal '25, I think, has been healthy. So Chapter 70, is that a quick enough, yet long enough? Fine balance between, okay. And then the last thing to report is what I was going to mention, and thank you, Diana, for raising it, was we did see a drop in Title I federal funding over the summer. About a couple weeks ago, we received the estimated appropriations from the State Department of Education based on federal receipts. Our two significant federal grants are the Special Education IDEA grant and the Title I grant. We maintained the funding levels as anticipated in the IDEA Special Education grant, so we're pleased for that. The cuts in the Title I grant were not, frankly, unanticipated. We got a letter from the state back in January, and we reported on that at the time, and we actually built the budget around anticipating some cost, some cut. May recall, and I have it up, so I'm not pretending to recall it off the top of my head, but I have it on my screen. You may recall that one of the conversations we had during the budget presentations when Amy Sullivan and I were presenting the Winthrop budget, that there were two significant staffing shifts that were impacting Winthrop's budget in fiscal '25. One was the loss of ESSER 3 funds for 3 positions, and the others were what we anticipated to be cuts in in Title I aid or Title I grant. So we added into the fiscal '25 Winthrop budget about $50,000, anticipating cuts from Title I. So while it's certainly a hit, the news came in as we wish we didn't get that cut, but we prepared for it the best we could. So it's not going to be as dramatic as we would have, and we're able to preserve the 3 positions that are Title I funded. We moved.
What was the total difference between last year and this year?
161 was FY 161,000, 162,000 versus about a $70,000 cut.
Massive.
But we anticipated 50 of the 70. Is that what
Well, we
is that essentially what
anticipated
you're
that
saying?
so the information that we got in January was to expect about a 50% cut. Yeah, we were informed of this. This is
'Cause
not.
I remember,
This is.
I was thinking
yeah.
80-ish.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we actually got a less cut than we were informed of. But we anticipated that as best we could and were able to bring resources or bring budget costs into the appropriated budget for 3 positions. A reading para, a reading specialist, and the math specialist. Those are 3 of the 5 positions covered, or at least partially covered, frankly, under Title I.
Are the feds pulling back on this funding, or is it something unique to Ipswich, or what?
Well,
Do we have any sense for why
yeah,
funding got
we
cut
do.
by over 50%?
We do. It's driven by the census. I think in fiscal '23, the district was informed to anticipate reductions in fiscal '24. I think through a political action that we and others didn't see those cuts in fiscal '24, but we were informed at the beginning and planning for fiscal '25 that the census, the population of children being served that requires those services, not that is benefiting from those services. I want to be careful that I'm your math guy, not your Title I program services person, right? I want to wear all of my hats. So we have fewer number of students on our census that are eligible for those services. Certainly, we have students that are benefiting from those services and need those services, but that's not how the formula is driven.
Now that we have universal, free and reduced lunch for everybody, are we getting as many people to fill out the forms necessary that we need to fill out the forms to make sure that census is in fact accurate?
So I would say a yes to that, and in fact, we have to thank the State Department of Education as well as the nutrition sub-department, because they have lightened up on the requirement to fill out that form every year.
Okay, so it's not a
Once
reporting
you
problem.
qualify, it's not really a reporting problem. It's really, and I think we know this. We're seeing declines in populations. We're not seeing a dramatic drop, but we're seeing shifts in some population needs. Certainly, do we always want to be better and improve at reporting? Sure. But I don't think that's not the driving factor.
Thank you, Tom.
So that's my report for tonight.
you ended on bad news, but most of it was good news.
Yes, I wanted to, I was, do I start off with this, or where do I go?
But sandwich here, Tom.
Where do I? So, anyways.
Thank you. That
Thank you,
was
Sam. That was
very
helpful.
informative. That was awesome. All right. Next, are we on to superintendent's administrative report?
All right. So I took a number of requests this week, so bear with me as I go through all this. Welcome back, everyone. Certainly been a busy summer in all of the buildings. You heard earlier about the building tours and some of the projects that are going on. Just a few things that I want to take some time to highlight. As you know by now, Chris Race, the facilities director for both the town and school, left in early July as the facilities director. He took a position in another town. Brad Orm, who was the assistant director, took over and stepped into the interim role with the support of the town manager and I. We were able to take some projects off of his plate and move some of the administrative tasks to other departments to facilitate some of that happening. After many discussions over the summer, Stephen and I have decided to look at reorganizing the facilities department. Brad has been working with me to perhaps take on the facilities director position just for the school system. Originally, he was hired just for the school and sort of got sucked up into the town piece of it as well. So we're looking to separate the two departments again. On the town side, the facilities director position will be a different person, and that's going to be absorbed under the Department of Public Works. Billing and purchasing for the schools will be done through our office, and Brad and I are looking to work through position descriptions and see how the duties and responsibilities can be split up a little bit more effectively. In terms of the facilities, I reported out earlier all the major projects have wrapped up for the summer. We're just trying to put the finishing touches on all the buildings. We talked about the scheduling already, so I won't rehash that. All the annual inspections themselves for the boilers and elevators, et cetera, have been completed, and we're ready to roll. We are also starting the year fully staffed in the facilities department. Overall, I think we're in good shape staffing-wise. Scott Liberty has joined us as a building administrator for this year at the Paul F. Doyle Memorial School to work with Adam, who's going to maintain the role of the interim principal there. We have just a few last-minute positions to fill at both Doyon and Winthrop. Literally this afternoon, Adam hired a speech and language pathologist that we needed. Just so happened that the interviews went well and we were able to bring this person on board, and we're not poaching them from another district where she was in a clinic before, so that's good. The middle and high school are fully staffed, my understanding. Our admin team meeting this week focused on the readiness of the buildings, some updates from the business office in terms of time tracking and reimbursements and some of the procedures that we're changing. We reviewed all of our safety plans and the schedule of all of our safety meetings and drills for this year. So that's all done in our calendars. We also spent considerable time discussing the tech updates and changes to our technology infrastructure that will make it easier for staff and students to access their systems. We're looking at some single sign-on systems that will make it a lot easier for our students, particularly our younger learners, to get into their Chromebooks. The extended year program, ESY, was another great success this year. We ran the program from July 8th to August 8th, Monday through Thursday. We had about 150 students that participated in the program, working on skill-based academic instruction, social emotional skill development opportunities, and related services. Students were supported each day by dedicated staff. We had about 60 folks working in the EDP program, just about all of whom are Ipswich Public Schools employees. We held the program at the Paul F. Doyle Memorial School this year for the elementary schools, and then the middle and high school programs participated here and downstairs. It was co-directed by Megan Ganley and Rebecca Higgins. And then we had additional logistical support from a high school student and administrative support from Heidi Kent in my office and Megan DeGenova, who's the special education secretary at the elementary level. This summer, Tracy's been overseeing 15 different professional development opportunities for our preschool through pre-K through 12 teachers. We had about 165 seats, which equates to about 135 different staff members that participated in those professional development opportunities. Let's see. And the last piece that I just wanted to highlight was the cell phone policy that's going into effect here at the high school. So we have the policy is in place. It's in the student handbook, ready to go. I asked the administration for some talking points. Parents received a Google form that they had sent out that they'll be keeping their kids' phones at home. Students, and if that's not happening, students will be turning in their phones to their teacher in their first block class. Each teacher has a wooden phone caddy that the students will put their phones in, and the teacher will lock the phones in a cabinet using an extra long hasp padlock that we bought in addition to the caddies to safeguard them. All the teachers have a cabinet in their classroom already, and almost all of the teachers have a cabinet in their classroom. For those who don't, we'll buy 2-drawer filing cabinets. They'll send a. That's not for you. That's for me. Few minutes before dismissal, at the end of the day, we'll send kids back to their first block class to collect their phones. Each teacher will keep a key on their ID lanyard with their classroom key, and the office will keep a second key so that we won't have to worry about not being able to get them. Teachers are to leave the padlock unlocked in case they are absent, at which point we will issue the sub a spare key to use to secure the phones in the cabinet. If a student knows that they'll be dismissed, they'll leave their phones in the office so as not to disrupt classes later. If a kid gets dismissed due to illness, they'll have to retrieve their phone, but that's usually only 1 or 2 a day, according to John. Seniors who are eligible for senior privilege can have their phones on them starting Q2, but they'll still be expected to keep them silent and invisible. Students can leave their phones in their car, but if that's their plan, we still need a parent to complete the Google form to let them know that they won't have their phone in school. Students who want to take a car pass to go to their vehicle will need to be escorted by a building administrator. And then there's consequences for not turning them in. And then he just closed it out. He said, by the way, Becky and I, meaning John Mitchell, both spoke to the Boston Globe yesterday afternoon. So that would have been Tuesday, about the cell phone ban. The story should be out later this week or early next week. I don't know if folks have questions. I don't know that I'll be able to answer them, but have at it.
I have a quick comment. The cell phone logistics seem like, clearly they're so complicated. They seem very well thought out. You've come up with different, just having the cell phone in the office if someone has to leave early. That's great that was thought of. And then what are the positions that you still need or that are still needed to be filled at the elementary schools?
I believe at this point they're paraprofessional positions. I think all of the speech and language path at Doyon was filled today. We may have a part-time special educator position at Doyon, and the others are paraprofessional positions.
Thank you. All right, moving on. Subcommittee working group and liaison reports. I'm just going to go down the list and you can update me if there's anything, but I'm guessing there won't be much. So we're just kicking off. Budget? Nope. Okay.
August, no.
Yeah, communications, we're planning to meet, like 2 weeks, right?
Second week of September.
Mutual concerns,
No,
gotcha. I'm just going to say that negotiations have been ongoing, and we're going to talk about that later. Operations,
Also,
we do
the-
have a meeting scheduled. Yes,
Also, second week of September.
yeah, September 11th.
right? Policy, we'll get on the calendar maybe tonight. FEFI's policy working group also
Need to get on the calendar at some point.
to be planned soon. And we talked about the elementary school building project working group. That's coming up. It sounds like you have a plan.
We're meeting on Wednesday of next week.
Excellent. And then, so then at our September 5th meeting, you can let us know where you're at and maybe throw out some ideas for when the big meeting's going to happen.
That's right, we'll recommend a couple of dates.
Awesome. Any liaison reports?
I can report on the turf field.
Great.
We met last night. I'm the liaison. They met, I sat, Tom was with us for good reason for the financial purposes. So this is the group working toward a project that would build a field house, accessory house on the turf field as the last phase of the turf field project. We voted in support of $140,000 from the Payne grant in favor of this. So I'll just tell you that the update is, it was, of course, the topic that we, the school committee, when voting on that from the Payne Grant Committee, had concern about the amount of money because this project has taken so long because they were asked to halt the project during, after COVID. Right now, including the $140,000 from the Payne Grant allowance, they have about 3/4 or $750,000, 750,000. Last night, they voted to move forward with the sewer design, which is a big part of the project because you have to bring the sewer out across the field. And they also voted to separate that as the first part of it. Even with the $750,000, they're estimating that they're about $500,000 short to complete a building, but they understand that there is a sense of urgency from the school committee to use this $140,000 within the year. So they voted to separate it into a phase of sewer design and move forward with that. And then they also voted to move forward with more building design. And I think what I asked them for, and they would provide, like this sewer design, it's going to take a while. They can't do it. They've already lost, they couldn't do it this summer. If they go through and break ground for the sewer system to the building, it would have to be when the field, the softball field in between this building and the turf field isn't in use. So what they're planning on doing in case it takes too long by next year to spend the $140,000 that we had the expectation that they need to get going with, they would come just report to us on status. But the initial phase of that, initial funding of that would be put toward this sewer design and moving forward with that. Does that sound right, Tom?
Was there any discussion about how they might go about getting the remaining $500,000 that are needed for the project?
There has been discussion about, do they go back to Institution for Savings? Do they go to biolabs? Do they, there is some discussion about, solar panels and making this a green building, and in fundraising to different organizations, maybe getting some funds through, that initiative.
Solar panels, I missed the solar panels on the building? I'm confused, sorry. I don't know what this,
On the campus.
On the
If
campus.
if the town's moving forward on the,
oh,
it was a pie in the sky sort of.
so like parking lot,
Conversation.
photovoltaic,
No, that wasn't part of it.
sort of like an additional solar array that could go, I don't, sorry, I don't know.
It
I
was
don't know what
discussed that there would
maybe
be
you don't-
solar panels on the roof potentially
Oh, gotcha.
of this building or that building. I'm unclear, but how to power some of the electricity in that building. And that there's potential, I think the hope was that there might be potential grant money available because of the way it was designed toward sustainability.
What is the approval for the spending of the funds that are currently available or will be in the future happen? I'm unfamiliar with the mechanics of that. Who has authority to spend that money? What's the approval process?
I'm
I can
unclear on
probably
that.
speak to some of that. So prior to last night's meeting, I had met with Chubb Whitten and Joe Wright, as sort of wanting to take the ball and make some real progress. And that was one of the things that we discussed. And one of the things that we did clear up was that, for example, that this project would need to be bid competitively. We would need to go to the marketplace and have a competitive bid. Even at the estimates, as Jen is representing, it's going to be over $1 million, $1.2 million, $1.3 million, $1.4 million. But we really don't have a sense of that. The numbers that do exist are now 4 or 5 years old, and it's a very different world in construction and everything. So that was one of the things that Chubb and Joe and I talked quite a bit about how we would, sort of make some progress there. One of the votes that they took last night was to hire an architect, as Jen represented, to help put together what the design of the building would be, and then build out. Then I had offered to work with that architect to design some specs, then go to the street, probably November-ish. Thinking it may take the architect and us to get to the middle of October, maybe late October, to have all of that work done. But sort of the timeline that we have in mind is to go out to bid in the beginning of November. Probably be able to have the bids back and evaluated by early January. Perhaps being able to award contracts February or so, and that's getting into the timeline that Jen referred to about when we might be able to, put shovels in the ground as far as digging for sewer lines and those sorts of things. I think specifically to your question, Sasha, I'm of the opinion, of the understanding that this committee is the proponent of this project, and they have been shepherding it for a number of years now. They were the grant writers for the Payne grant. They received the funding through the process, and certainly they are authorized to expend the $140,000 that was written and approved from Payne for fiscal year '25. Now, as far as the remaining balance, which is, call it 600,000, because that 750 includes the 140, so 610. I think that needs to be discussed over, once we get an actual scope of work and understand how much the project's gonna cost. Is it $1.1 million, $1.5 million? What is it? And then there was some positive conversations, but I think more, optimism around possibilities for where some of these resources could come from.
Is that 600 or now this almost 750, is it a school account, a town account, or is it something separate?
So it's in the FEFI's funds, and the 140 we received in the disbursement this year.
Yeah.
So we, the school department, are presently holding the 140,000, and will expend it as we expend all paying grants throughout the course of the year. The remaining balance exists in the trust fund that.
All from the FEFIs. Okay, I thought there was additional funding.
No,
in
that's
there.
all.
Okay.
To my understanding, there's also an account that Ipswich Education Foundation is holding that was a donation from the bank. I believe they're also holding some of those funds. So the funds, historical funds that exist in two places. One in the FEFI's funds historically, and secondly, the donation from the bank.
I have some other questions on the history, but I'll hold that. That's not for tonight.
And I'm happy to continue to look this up, because I've got a quick speed on.
No, I appreciate that. I feel like we've gone beyond the scope of the update from the
Oh,
last
fair
meeting,
enough,
so
yeah.
I'm going to hold
Fair
my
enough.
questions.
Yeah, I have questions too, but maybe we can.
Yeah.
I have one, I'm going to do it, just as a point of clarification. Tom Gallagher was the official author?
Official author of it, yeah.
Okay, so I think
Okay, that's helpful. Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
having somebody in the school
Yeah.
who's,
Yep.
Yeah.
And
Right,
and
like, it's not just a-
historically,
yeah.
Tom's on this committee.
Tom is on that committee, but historically, we had who now are former school committee members sitting on that when they were active members on the school committee. So Hugh O'Flynn,
He was there last night.
he was on that, part of that group when he was an active member, as well as Barry Hopping, when he was on the school committee. They had both been involved with that over time.
okay, right.
One thing I'm not sure about, though, Jen, you said it earlier, that they were told to stop doing anything with the project. I don't know who told them to stop, what that was about.
Hugh gave a little bit of a history last night. He said
recall
basically
that.
when COVID hit, like as you said, Dr. Blake, like they were this active committee with two school committee members on it. And then when COVID hit, and I don't want to misquote him, but he said, we are asked to halt this project because there were other things to fund.
Okay.
And COVID just kind of took over and the project got halted.
Okay.
And I'm not sure, and I might be getting it wrong.
Okay.
Were they asked to? Did it just get halted because so much got halted?
I think so.
Yeah,
I don't recall ever saying to them that they needed to
they
stop.
couldn't. But I
Right.
know that just in my experience, this committee resurrected itself last summer and is rededicated to finishing the project.
Okay, sounds like more to come.
Yep.
Okay. All right, real quick, we're still looking to fulfill the MASC voting delegate position. Let me know who's interested. And lastly, on a good note, I'll just say the Wellness Committee has been meeting and we're working on our wellness policy. We've got some good energy there, so hopefully we'll be presenting that over the next month or two.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, next, new business.
I just have one. I meant to mention this during my student report. The Ipswich High School Art Club is looking to do a expedition on Arthur Wesley Dow, who was an artist in town, and to my understanding, the school was gifted artworks by him, and we don't know where they are. Are they at the superintendent's office? Are they at the public library? Or? Ipswich Museum now. Okay, because we didn't know where they were in the school, but the idea was that we would do a fair here at the school or something about.
Yeah, when I first started, they were actually housed in the central office. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
But we,
So
they were since moved to the Ipswich Museum. Just first,
Right. I mean, if there was going to be a fair, would we go to the Ipswich Museum for that, or school committee to ask permission to display them, or I don't know how?
Are they ours, or did we give them to the museum? Or are they still school? They're storing them. So
yeah. 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 Yeah.
Okay, but they are still school property, I guess? Good
As
question.
far as I know, yep.
Okay.
Interesting.
one other small item of business. I believe we need to appoint someone to be a member of the audit committee, because I got an email from the town clerk asking if we had an appointment letter, and I said, we don't, but we can vote. So I think it has been proposed that Sasha will serve on the audit committee this year, so I would propose that we just take a vote. And I know it wasn't on the agenda, but I think it's a bit more of a formality than a
Yeah, and this was
major
recent.
item. So I will make a motion to appoint Sasha Sopik as a member of the audit committee for the 2024-2025 school year.
Right, moved by Kate, second by Jenny.
You go.
All in favor?
Yeah, I don't think it has to be roll call.
That's funny.
Okay,
All in favor.
are you going to vote or you abstain?
Is it appropriate for me to vote?
You can
on-
vote.
okay,
Kate voted for herself, all right.
So thank you so
6-0, congratulations, Sasha, thank you.
I will
Thank you.
follow up with Leah and
Yes.
Laura and get a letter.
Great, thank you. All right, vouchers and bills, none. Consent agenda. Move that the Ipswich School Committee accept the meeting minutes from June 24th, 2024, and July 22nd, 2024, and move that the Ipswich School Committee accept a donation from the Ipswich Education Foundation in the amount of $4,950 for half of the Huddle subscription for the 2024-2025 school year to be deposited into the athletic revolving account.
So moved. Or second. Did you
Okay.
motion? Okay, so I'll
Move,
second.
Second. Okay, moved by Diana, second by Kate. All in favor? Great, 6-0. Pass. And finally, our last item. So to move into executive session. So I am making a motion and vote to meet in executive session pursuant to MGL Chapter 30A, Section 21A, for the following purpose. 3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining.
I would just add that following the executive session, we would simply be coming out to adjourn.
Yes.
Second.
Okay, moved by Diana, second by Jen, and roll call. All right, Sasha?
Yes.
Kate?
Yes.
Jen?
Yes.
Yes. Jenny?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. We are exiting open and moving into executive.
Okay.
9:40.
Wait a minute to
Let me just
confirm.
unplug the microphones.
Yeah.
Should we unplug these ones?